right, good morning, everyone. This is the Tuesday, October 12th edition of the City of Atlanta City Utilities Committee. I'm Vice Chair Howard Shook. With me, we have Andrea Boone, we have Ms. Ishay Collins, Matt Westmoreland, and Alex Lon. So we do have a quorum. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will make a motion to adopt the agenda. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
All right, you've all carefully perused the minutes of the prior meeting, and so I'll move their adoption. We have a proper motion and a second. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been adopted.
All right. This takes us to public comment. Am I right that we have none?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. That takes us to our consent agenda. And could you sound our first reads, please?
Yes. Starting with our ordinances for first read, item number 1, 25-01447, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Solar for All program grant funding as subrecipient of the Capital Good Fund in the amount of $2 million and 0 cents for the purpose of implementing upgrades and repairs at neighbor solar energy projects. Authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2026 Intergovernmental Grant Fund to anticipate and appropriate the grant funds. Authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into agreements to accept the grant as a subrecipient and to implement the grant project and for other purposes. And item number 2, 25-01448, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2026 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $3 million and 0 cents to transfer funds from the watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the rejuvenation of historic Fourth Ward Park, green infrastructure project, and for other purposes. That brings us to our regular agenda, starting with ordinances for second reading. Mr. Chair, we do have a request to amend this item number 3. The amendment changes the language that says fiscal year 2025 to fiscal year 2026 throughout the legislation.
Moving properly second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The amended item is before the body. And this is item number 3, 25-01409, an amended ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept grant funds from the U.S. Department of Energy's Resilient and Efficient Codes Implementation Grant as subrecipient of Southeast Energy and Efficiency Alliance Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $124,500 and 0 cents for the purpose of researching the cost and feasibility of building performance standards in Atlanta, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend fiscal year 2026 Intergovernmental Grant Fund to anticipate and appropriate the grant funds, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into agreements to accept the grant as subrecipient of Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance Incorporated and implement the grant project and for other purposes.
It's been moving properly second. Moved by Councilmember Juan, second by Councilmember Collins. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is approved as amended. This brings us to item number 4, 25-01410, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee to waive Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4, as well as any other conflicting provisions of the Atlanta City Code to ratify services performed by DuraClean of Atlanta, LLC, for cleaning and restoration services rendered on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management in response to city-owned water and water and sewer infrastructure failures, to authorize the Chief Financial Officer and his designee to pay all outstanding invoices for services performed by DuraClean of Atlanta, LLC in an amount not to exceed $69,293.16. All payments will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Second.
It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. This brings us to item number 5, 25O1411, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2026 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $5,500,000.00 to transfer the funds from the watershed reserves for appropriation and add funds to the small meter installation project and for other purposes.
So moved.
Been moving properly second, moved by Councilmember Collins, second by Councilmember Juan. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Can all council members please vote? Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable.
Can I ask a question about that? Just one about the water meters, small meter installations. Are these specific locations, or have we already identified all the locations we're going to be doing this at? Because the Atlanta Habitat has reached out to me about a particular building in the Carter Work Project and different projects in which they need water meters. It's the only thing holding them up. So is this something we're going to keep doing?
Hugh Smith, Office of Customer Care and Billing Services, Department of Watershed Management. To answer your question, this is an ongoing project. As requests come in, they're filled. We're typically running a 4 to 6 week lead time on having those meters installed. But if there's something specific to an agency like you're talking about, let me know and I'll make sure that we reach directly out to them and create a partnership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please proceed.
This brings us to our resolutions. This is item number 6, 25R3740, a resolution by Councilmember Eshe Collins authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the WIFA Master Agreement between the City of Atlanta and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to extend the master availability period of the loan agreement by 3 years, to authorize the execution of any related agreements or documents, and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Second.
Moving properly second. Please open the vote.
Vote is open.
Good.
Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Okay. If there are no objections, Mr. Chair, can we take items 7 and 8 together?
Please do.
All right. Item number 7, 25R3778, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for an RFP number listed herein for on-call major electrical repairs and services with Brown Electrical LLB joint venture on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options and an amount not to exceed $2,250,000.00, subject to and expressly contingent on adoption of the fiscal year 2027 and 2028 budgets. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And item number 8, 25R3779, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for RFP number listed herein for on-call major electrical repairs and services with Ruby Collins /SE Consortium Joint Venture on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options and an amount not to exceed $17,100,000.00, subject and expressly contingent upon the adoption of the fiscal year 2027 and 2028 budgets. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, we will have to hold these 2 items as we have not received the IPA reports yet.
Please hold. Been moving properly second. Moved by myself, second by Councilmember Juan. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The items are held in committee. This brings us to item number 9, 25R3780, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue task order number 7 for an RFP number listed herein for citywide architectural planning, design, engineering, construction phase services, Group B large, RFP number listed herein with Dream ATL joint venture team for post-closure and landfill maintenance of city-owned landfills on behalf of the Department of Public Works in an amount not to exceed $1,589,671.00, with all contractor work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein, and for other purposes.
I know this is a big paper. Any of my colleagues want to hear anything about this? So Councilmember Matt Westmoreland said yes, so we'll please, please anything from the department about this legislation.
Good morning, everyone. Deputy Commissioner Keith Robinson. Pretty much this legislation is for task order number 7, which allows us to, work with our contractor to work with our post-closure landfill. So basically, the contractor is like monitoring the wells, the gas, and some other, and making sure that we're in state compliance as well, too.
Do we always have to contract this service out, or is there a plan to bring this service in-house one day?
This is a very scientific type service, so it would require some, skill sets that we don't have currently in-house. But it's something that we could, potentially look at down the road, so.
Sufficient to my colleagues? Been moved and properly moved by Councilmember Wan, second by Councilmember Collins. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Mr. Chair, that brings us to our People's Housing Committee, for which we have a request to bring item number 11 off. We do have a request to substitute this item.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. Please bring forward the substitute. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before the body. Mr. Chair, the substitute will include language to ensure Google and its subcontractors are responsible for the city's right-of-way and infrastructure to its original condition in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th whereas clauses. To be read into the record, this is item number 11-25-01400, a substitute ordinance by the City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a non-exclusive franchise agreement between the City of Atlanta and Google Fiber Georgia LLC for a term of 10 years with 2 successive 2-year renewal options to encroach on and occupy the public right-of-way for the purpose of constructing, installing, repairing, maintaining, operating, and if necessary, removing the fiber to the premise, FTTP network and related network facilities to offer broadband services and voice over internet protocol services to residents and businesses within the City of Atlanta, to require a franchise fee in the amount of 2% and for other purposes.
Councilmember Collins.
Yes, just wanted to bring forth you all's attention that we do have representatives and also the team here from our last City Utilities Committee to answer any questions that you all have. From there is a memo you have before you that answers the questions that we inquired about our last committee meeting. One, in terms of what the 2% actual franchise fee equates to in dollar amounts, which is about $1.6 million annually, $420,000 quarterly. Also, there was additional question from ATL DOT in terms of the subcontractors, putting the premises back into the condition so that as they are servicing our constituents. There is Exhibit A that actually kind of gives a breakdown from the last 8 years of how those issues have been resolved. And so with the addition of the substitute that have that condition into the agreement, just wanted to make sure that you guys are fully informed on this important piece of legislation before the committee. Mr. Chair, I yield.
Councilmember Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, colleagues, I know that we raised the issue last cycle about kind of the restoration of work. And while I appreciate the substitute, I think we all also know that putting all the information in a whereas clause can be somewhat meaningless. And so I would suggest and proffer that what we really need is a substitute that has something in the whereas, in the be it resolved ordained clause that ties both the contractor as well as perhaps the city department to, the compliance with that. The second thing I'll add is that while I appreciate the answers in the memo, but the reality of it is it's only as good as our city inspectors and department people end up being perfectionists in terms of the restoration. And so I'd like to kind of hear that side of it from our office as to what we're going to change in terms of our expectations and our requirements once a restoration is done. And then I would like to hear from law after that in terms of how can we strengthen the language of this legislation so that it's not tucked away in a whereas clause, but it's an actionable item.
Before they end, can I just ask a question about that, just for clarity? So number 5 on the memo states where it has the 2 whereas provisions, and please help me understand as in terms of being new to this process, what has that normally looked like to ensure, and maybe this is a question for department, so a couple of things. What does that language look like to ensure full commitment and accountability, number 1? Number 2, for this, I know you talked about in terms of the city department being also accountable for, I guess, checking to make sure that the repairs have happened. How, number 2, that has happened in the past in holding subcontractors accountable when you have a franchise agreement in this magnitude. And then 3, how does this with Google Fiber differ from the other agreements that we have with other telecommunications and also wireless providers? So those 3 questions, if just add on to it, will help me understand this as well.
Good morning, committee. Solomon Cavanis, Atlanta Department of Transportation Commissioner. So if you would bear with me, I'll speak to the process related to our inspectors and our franchise agreements and how operationally we intend to address some of the concerns. So as you are aware, we have a number of franchise agreements that we've engaged with various communication companies, and we have a team of inspectors that go out and make sure, as per city code and agreements, that restoration is followed through. We recognize that there have been challenges in the past. The Atlanta Department of Transportation is the operational department that oversees right-of-way impacts. So what we've done is reset with the Department of Law our restoration SOPs. We've also identified the opportunity to bring on additional inspectors for franchise work. That documentation is forwarded to leadership in the administration in terms of restoration, and we work with council in terms of challenges that we've dealt with. We will monitor how this new process in terms of our SOPs for enforcement evolves on a quarterly basis. And I'd just like to bring up my Deputy Commissioner of Transportation Infrastructure Management to speak to how that process is managed as he oversees our inspection team. Alan Smith.
Good morning, Council. Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner for Atlanta Department of Transportation and Maintenance. So as the Commissioner said, we have a lot of franchise agreements. And beyond franchise agreements, there are a lot of other people that do work in the right-of-way. How it's structured now, it's a process we set up when the engineering department was set up. So any person or franchise company that wants a permit with us, it all starts with a technical review. And these are things where they look at work type, traffic control plans, all of the things that go into a permit application. From there, it moves to our maintenance group. From there, each application has a pre-con meeting with an inspector, so they talk about what the expectations are as far as restoration, work type, timing, all of those things. From there, once the permit is issued, the inspector will go out intermittently and just check on the job site and make sure that the plan is being adhered to. Now, where we are improving our process is we are launching a SOP now, as the Commissioner said, that the Department of Law has helped us craft that really standardizes how we enforce in the right-of-way. I know that's historically been something that we've had challenges with, but essentially what it comes down to is a notice of violation for any issues that come up, which gives the franchise company or any other entity that's doing work in the right-of-way a chance to cure that issue. From there, if it's not cured within that given period of time, then that's when the citations start. What we're building now is a application that helps us actually track and monitor those instances. Because historically, we just haven't had a very robust system to do that. So over the next month, you will begin to see a lot of tracking, a lot of monitoring for issues that actually happen in the right-of-way. And as we alluded to earlier, if need be, if the issue still isn't corrected, we can then call in performance bonds with the help of risk management.
I appreciate that, and there's some conversation going on here. I mean, I know that all of our franchise agreements, and like you said, anybody who does work in the right-of-way should be adhering to our requirements. And I think, again, that language is there. It's just the will and the commitment and discipline that our inspectors and our departments, quite frankly, have in terms of when the work gets done and they go and look at it, it's like, yeah, it either passes or it doesn't pass. I think we've been fairly lenient in terms of what's acceptable versus not. So is the SOP something that is y'all are in a position to be able to share with council members ahead of Monday's meeting?
So ahead of Monday's meeting, we'd have to defer to legal.
Okay.
But the SOP has been established. We've worked with legal on it, and notwithstanding, we understand council's in the committee's concerns.
Okay.
The bond issue is how you enforce. You hold that bond.
Yeah, but it takes someone to say, you haven't done it to my satisfaction, we're going to invoke the bond. Because if someone just says, it looks good enough, and it really is not, and it's not to the community's standards, then you never instigate the bonds, right? It's really, again, that one person or that one function and that one step is what drives whether we're successful with this or not.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm sorry that Google is kind of the case before us right now. I mean, because that does apply across all the different utility companies and those that are working in the right of way. Because we can all point to examples in our districts where constituents have called and said, hey, they ripped it up and they've just kind of slapped some gravel on it and they think they're done. So, okay. I will, to keep this moving forward, I know there are other questions, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve on condition. Condition being that SOP, and then a condition, and law is going to, smarter minds than me are going to have to figure this out, but if there is a way to revise this legislation so that it is not only in the whereas section, but also down further in terms of accountability within the department or even with the contractor to live up to what we're expecting here. So thank you, Mr. Chair. That's my motion, and hopefully someone will second it and we'll keep going.
Before we open up a vote on that, I know Mr. Chair, I know Mr. Shook, before I say anything, I know Councilman Shook has been waiting, just wanting to see before I ask my questions.
Thank you. Yeah, mostly I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Wan's comments. I will begin, though, where I left off last time, which is repeating that for me, my interactions with Google have typically been, you find professional, and I've found them to be very responsive. The problem that I've had, and imagine we all have had, is with their subs and some of their subs. One of the things that was brought up last time was the need to make sure that the noticing requirements are being followed through with, as we've all found ourselves in the position of having the utility say, yeah, we put out the door hangers, and the property owner swearing up and down that, no, that never did happen. Of course, we never know for sure. So I'll start there. There are noticing requirements, correct? And if they're enshrined in the code, I would like to see that referenced in the ordained section. But first confirm the notice requirements, it's a code requirement, correct?
That is correct, Councilmember Shook, especially for things like road closures and things like that, where there are going to be a lot of constituents that are affected. There are notification requirements ahead of any construction in the right of way.
But what about shy of a street closure?
So typically for things like lane closures,
Well, I'm talking about the meat and potato stuff where, the homeowner gets home from work and sees his yard torn up. We all know that's the public right of way, but we all understand the psychology of that. So what are the notice requirements around that we will be do we fleece them and how? We'll be working in your right of way Tuesday the 15th.
yes, for abutting property owners.
Okay, so I would like to see, I'd like to piggyback on Mr. Wan's amendment, if that's acceptable, that we include that, reference to that, and then I want to go back and just make sure that the language in these two whereas clauses will be reflected in a substitute in the ordained section referring specifically to the code sections involved, not just simply here's what we hope is going to happen in the whereases. So that's my comment on that. Thank you.
And we're gonna go back to Councilmember Collins.
Okay, so what I struggle with, and I agree with I agree, Councilman Juan and Councilman Shook, where your positions are. What I struggle with this is that the majority of the majority of responses that we're hearing is from the city and from our departments. And if we're talking about SOPs and the notice requirements and ways that we want to take, that we want to ensure that we leave our, constituents' properties in the conditions or whatnot, I do think it's inherently unfair to put that condition on one entity, on one franchisee, Google Fiber, without us holding the entire department accountable for implementing that SOP across all of our franchise agreements. Because what we're looking, it's not just Google Fiber, it's Georgia Power, it's Comcast, whoever else. So so I agree with the conditions. I think I just struggle with this being the entity that is infatuated on without it being a larger conversation on how we as a department are holding all of our franchisees accountable and or subcontractors. So if you can help me understand that, because what is happening here is what is happening here is a possible, and I appreciate the amendment, is a service, an additional service that can be offered to our constituents. And yes, we want to make sure that it's done in the right way, properly, making sure our properties, because I've also been the victim of that as well, is put in the right place. I also want to make sure that it is inherently fair and is applicable to everyone. So if you all, for the city department and law department, can help me understand how to achieve those two pieces in an equitable manner, I do feel that we can move this forward. But I do think it's inherently unfair that this condition is just placed on one for consideration and not on all. And please check me if I'm wrong. This is my first time pushing this, but.
Well, I feel like Mr. Shook and Mr. Wan both get to respond to that if she'll take it, but also we try not to talk across the board, but.
Yeah, Department of Law, and then I know Councilwoman Boone is waiting as well, so.
In what order do we want to do this? Councilwoman Boone, are you ready right now?
I simply want to ask for some help for the neighbors on Hiawassee that were miserable over the past 7 days. Hiawassee is a wonderful neighborhood off of Lyndhurst. We were bombarded with calls. We need to get them some help immediately. Hiawassee Drive, particularly the 500 block.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone. We're gonna go to Councilmember Wan, and we'll allow Councilmember Collins to respond
I'm
if
good.
possible.
I appreciate the comment, and I'm a yes and. I'm like, yes, I'm perfectly, the way I think we accomplish is that I'm happy to drop this language in every single franchise agreements that starts coming before us. This one just happens to be the one that's in the queue now. And obviously the SOPs are going to apply to everything else going forward, but it's incumbent upon us as the legislative body that this is the first vehicle. The next one that comes up with Comcast, let's do it. The next one that comes up with AT&T, add it in. So I think that's how we achieve fairness. as the renewals come up and as the SOPs take effect. So hopefully that's how that works.
Vice Chair Shook.
I agree with that, and we're having this conversation now in this context because this is what's in front of us now. The others aren't. So I agree with that. That being said, we need to do what we're doing now, and that's to encourage the department to do a really crackerjack job of project management for all of them, because the code sections that are being referred to here, they exist and reach out and extend to all of these existing contracts. And so that's a project management question, and just we didn't need to make crystal clear what our expectations are, and if they need more resources to do it more efficiently, that's a discussion that we would have to have at that time. But thank you.
Councilmember Collins, if you want to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that and I respect that. I think for me, my questions and concerns of the dialogue just moved to also looking at 8 years of issues and, that we requested, and just kind of having a sense of, had this ever come up in other spaces as well? And so if we are all in support of this with the condition of the SOP on the city side, I support that because it is on us. And in all fairness, even Councilwoman Boone's request, that's us as a city. And so the efficiency of us delivering quality services to ensure that we're holding those that we do business with accountable in the city is extremely key. I know we have our Department of Law here, Mr. Chair, so I'll yield, and if there's anything in additional context they wanted to provide to us would be great.
Please do. Oh, please do. Thank you.
Good morning, Stephanie Grant, Department of Law. I want to address two things regarding the discussion that you all have had. Just one, generally and globally, when we're talking about enforcement, to Councilmember Wan's concerns about the enforcement being in the agreement more so than just in a recital in the ordinance. I can assure you that that's already there. You may not have the agreement itself in front of you, but as I told you all last time, I have negotiated this with Google since approximately January. And just for your knowledge and awareness, I am looking at section 1.2 of the agreement, where it indicates that the agreement and the franchisee are subject to the city's, the state, and local laws as they exist now. We also have obligations in the franchisee's obligations in section 2.3. The franchisee will comply with all applicable laws, including the city code, when performing the work. And 2.5, franchisee is to exert reasonable care. And as far as compliance with laws, I believe DC Smith was explaining to you all that the SOPs are in place, but the city code actually is pretty aggressive as to the city's ability to enforce the behavior of everyone working in the city's right-of-way. And that includes pulling permits, that includes issuing stop work orders, that includes quite a number of other enforcement mechanisms that I would encourage the department to get used to executing. However, on the global stage, it's not just as easy as it sounds to drop the requirements into upcoming franchise agreements. To Councilmember Collins' point, yes, we have Google in front of us. If you all will recall, you all, Mr. Shook, Ms. Boone, Mr. Wan, you've been here for quite a while. You know that the state law took over some of our ability to issue franchise agreements. So in 2008 and 2009, state law changed. So telecommunications companies have to go to the state to get a permit to work in our right-of-way. What the state allows us to do is to charge them a franchise fee, but we do not have any ability to have an agreement. So again, this goes back to better enforcement by the department. So I would say, to the extent that you all want to pass this on condition, I have no qualms with that. Rest assured on my word that some of the things that you're asking for are already in the agreement. I'd be more than happy to negotiate some further changes with Google Fiber and their attorney. And so we are more than happy to make sure that you get what you want, but just know that outside of the recitals in the ordinance, the agreement also contains some of that similar language. And there was another question for Law, but I can't recall at this time, but if somebody wanted to remind me.
Yes, my question was, what other franchise agreements that based on the conversation that we're having, what other franchise agreements that we have kind of in a hopper that may be impacted, impacted by these new conditions that we're talking about?
So again, franchise agreements are few because most of the telecom companies can go to the state and get a permit to work in our right-of-way. And then they are then required to work within the conditions that we enforce upon them. However, to my knowledge, there are three franchise agreements. There is a 99-year agreement with Georgia Power that was executed in 1965. And under the terms of the agreement, we do not have the ability, we only have the ability to modify the agreement every 25 years. And it's not time just yet. There is a franchise agreement with Comcast.
Yeah.
The Comcast agreement does have those provisions in it. And then Google would be the third franchise agreement, again, in deference to all the other utilities, the franchised utilities. They get their permission from the state. Does that help?
No, that does. Thank you. So you're saying in terms of your amendment is to move the agreement forward as is with the condition that the SOPs that would come from the city are a part of this for Monday.
No, I had two conditions. One was that, to the extent that the department can share the SOPs with us to give us a level of comfort that there will be better enforcement, inspection, and just compliance. And the second was a substitute that adding Mr. Shook's request in terms of the citation of the actual code sections within the body, and then just whatever we can move into the be it ordained piece, be it on the agreement, on the franchisee, or even on the department. I just feel like putting in the whereas clauses doesn't give it the actionable items that we would want as a legislative body. I'm not necessarily saying change the franchise agreement. I'm just saying let's acknowledge what is within our power and our authority to do within the be it ordained section.
I'd be happy to work on that. I think I have a whole team on the wall. Hopefully they're taking notes, and so we will get those ordained clauses. We will get those in a substitute. Would it be a substitute or an amendment now? We'll get that. we'll get that for you by Monday.
Thank you. Mr. Shook, please.
Yeah, I thank you for providing that clarification. I do not doubt for 1 second that everything you cited is not indeed part of the agreement. I'm not sure if paranoia is learned behavior or not, but as district members, we've all taken it on the chin from sloppy work done by subs, and so I think that's why we're having this conversation. So since the committee is blessed to have two extraordinarily experienced city attorneys here, I do have to say, this notion that, well, anyone who misbehaves, we're going to take their bond. How many times has that happened? It's happened once in my 24 years that I remember. We just don't do that here. We can, but we never do.
Mr. Shook, I would have to get back to you with that answer simply because the law department does not have purview over the bonds. I'm going to ask my friend and colleague, Mr. Deloach, who runs risk management, to have his team let us know how many times we have called a bond. I do know of 2 in the very recent past, yes? For some work on West Peachtree for some very shoddy work.
Okay.
I personally know those 2, but globally, I don't know the answer right now.
Okay, well, no, that's great. I'm glad to know that I guess we have an improved appetite for taking that step, because I think that's going to provide some much-needed nurturing that others will take note of. Thank you.
And in my district, I think we've had a issue with the wiring being stolen and being picked up out of the ground. So just, if you can, make them do the best job. The fiber actually being stolen from AT&T and being sold for copper. And so if possible, make sure that they do as best job as possible, because it could be picked up and actually stolen and sold. But it's been moved for approval. Please open the vote. That the second was moved by Councilmember One and second by Councilmember Westmoreland.
Vote is open.
What did you say?
6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable on condition.
And before you move forward, Councilmember Collins had something she wanted to say.
No, I understand. I think this has been a learning exercise for me in terms of understanding just kind of this historical perspective, but also the accountability on our end. I have full trust in our law department and our commissioner to make sure that we get this agreement in a solid point, but also continuing to make sure, as you expressed by the issues from my colleagues, that we are enforcing what we can do on the city side. I don't think it's good practice for us to put that on the onus on one entity that's want to do business with us. So I'll leave that there, but thank you, my colleagues. It's been great dialogue. I love it. Thanks.
Once again, that item is favorable on condition and will be forwarded to the Finance Executive Committee. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative agenda for today.
Are there anything from my colleagues? Any remarks? Meeting adjourned.